I want to be very careful with the word inevitable, because weather forecasters almost never use it. The atmosphere always carries uncertainty. There are always wild cards, failure modes, scenarios where the setup doesn't verify. I know that, and I still chose that word for the title of this video, because right now, in this specific atmospheric pattern, at this specific point in the tornado calendar, with this specific set of converging signals, I believe it is the right word. Let me explain exactly why. A progressive upper-level pattern is forecast during the day 4-8 period. By day 6, Tuesday, a deepening surface low is forecast across the central plains as a weak shortwave impulse migrating through northwesterly flow aloft glances the region. Increasing southerly low-level flow will begin to transport Gulf moisture northward across portions of the central United States, a deepening surface low. Gulf moisture returning northward, a shortwave impulse ejecting from the northwest into the central plains. This is the SPC Day 4-8 discussion from Wednesday morning, May 7th. It is describing Tuesday, May 12th, 4 days from now, and it is describing the early stages of what could be this season's most significant outbreak setup yet. And here is what makes it inevitable, rather than merely probable. 4 independent converging forces are all pointing at the same conclusion at the same time. Force 1, the atmospheric pattern has produced a major severe weather event every week since the first week of March without a single break. 13 consecutive weeks. Not once has the pattern fully reset into a stable, non-threatening configuration. Force 2, the May 19th through 26 window, the single most historically active severe weather week in American records, is 11 days away. And the large-scale pattern that drives that window's activity is setting up right now. Force 3, 0 high-risk days have been issued in 2026. Not one. In a season that has produced an EF5 in Indiana, an EF4 in Oklahoma, 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi in a single night, and 12 confirmed American deaths. The most extreme warning level in American meteorology has not yet been issued this season. The atmosphere has been producing catastrophic events without ever reaching the threshold that prompts the SPC's most urgent declaration. That gun is still loaded. Force 4. Tuesday's deepening surface low is the opening act of a multi-day sequence that the SPC is already beginning to flag with growing confidence. And behind Tuesday, this weekend's dry line, the following week's moisture return, the May 19th, 26 window. The pattern shows no sign of breaking. Here is what is coming. Watch this. I want to start with something that most viewers of this channel don't know because it reframes the entire character of the 2026 severe weather season in a way that is deeply alarming. A high risk is the most serious category on the Storm Prediction Center's scale measuring the threat for severe weather on a given day. High risks are reserved for potential tornado outbreaks or derechos. Forecasters at the SPC don't issue high risks lightly. It's tough for the ingredients to come together just right for a major severe weather outbreak to unfold. High risks convey high confidence in a high impact weather event. Level 5, the top of the scale, reserved for events where the SPC has high confidence in a major, widespread catastrophic tornado outbreak. In the entire history of the SPC's modern outlook system, only 6 high-risk days have been issued across all of the 2020s through 5+ years. They are extraordinarily rare. There were no high-risk days in 2015, 2016, or 2018. There were no high-risk days in 2020 or 2022. 6 high risks have been issued so far in the 2020s. The most recent high risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center appeared during a severe weather outbreak on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. The most recent high risk was April 2nd, 2025, over 13 months ago. And in the 2026 season, a season that has already produced an EF5, an EF4, multiple EF3s, 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi in a single night, 12 confirmed deaths, 2 tornado emergencies in the same state on the same night, not one high risk has been issued. Let me sit with that for a moment, because it means one of 2 things. Either the 2026 season, despite its extraordinary violence, has not yet produced the specific combination of high confidence and high coverage that prompts an SPC high-risk designation, or the most catastrophic events of this season are still ahead of us. I believe it is the second possibility, not because I want it to be, but because the atmospheric pattern that drives high-risk events, deep moisture, exceptional instability, strong wind shear, organized forcing, is assembling right now for the period from Tuesday, May 12th through the May 19th, 26 window. And this season has not yet given the SPC the setup that justifies their most extreme designation. That does not mean it has been quiet. It means the worst may be ahead. The maximum number of high-risk overlaps since 2000 appears in northeastern Mississippi, just southwest of Tupelo. These rural communities have fallen under 41 separate high-risk outlooks, mostly driven by tornado outbreaks. 41. Northeastern Mississippi, just southwest of Tupelo, has been under 41 separate high-risk outlooks since the year 2000. That is the most high-risk vulnerable geography in the United States. The same corridor that received 2 tornado emergencies Wednesday night. The same corridor that sits in the bullseye of every major Gulf moisture surge and dry line interaction this spring. That geography is not accidentally in the high-risk overlap record. It is there because the physics of that corridor, the flat terrain, the Gulf moisture highway, the proximity to the mean dry line position, makes it the most reliably dangerous severe weather geography in the country. And no high risk has been issued for it yet in 2026. Let me describe Tuesday, May 12th's setup in detail, because it is the most clearly defined upcoming severe weather threat in the current forecast period, and it represents the opening act of what could be the most dangerous 2-week stretch of the season. By day 6, Tuesday, a deepening surface low is forecast across the central plains as a weak shortwave impulse migrating through northwesterly flow aloft glances the region. Increasing southerly low-level flow will begin to transport Gulf moisture northward across portions of the central United States. A cold front will sag southward across Texas and Gulf Coast states, suppressing boundary layer moisture. The mechanics, a shortwave impulse ejecting through the northwesterly flow aloft over the central plains, triggers surface low development, what meteorologists call Lee cyclogenesis, the same process that has driven every major plains outbreak this spring. The deepening low pulls Gulf moisture northward on its eastern flank. The cold front pushes south and east. And as the two boundaries converge, the dry line and cold front interact in exactly the way that produces organized severe thunderstorm development. This is a day 6 forecast, still carrying significant uncertainty. The SPC is being appropriately measured in their language, describing the severe potential as marginal at this range. But here is what I have learned from tracking this season for 3 months. When the SPC describes a day 6 setup as having organized severe weather potential with a deepening surface low, Gulf moisture return, and converging boundaries, that setup is verified with more violence than anticipated more often than not in 2026. The specific question for Tuesday is the same question that has been the wild card in almost every setup this spring. How far north does the Gulf moisture advance before the shortwave arrives? If the moisture return is limited, Tuesday stays marginal. If the moisture surges further north into central Oklahoma and southern Kansas, which the 2026 pattern has repeatedly done, Tuesday escalates quickly. As the calendar turns to May, the focus shifts toward the traditional tornado alley, with areas from central Texas to eastern Nebraska facing the highest tornado risk. The peak tornado season for the southern plains is May into early June, central Texas to eastern Nebraska. The geographic heart of traditional tornado alley, the same corridor where the dry line sharpens and the Gulf moisture slams into the dry desert air every May. Tuesday's setup is targeting this corridor in its classic form, and the communities from Oklahoma City through Wichita through Kansas City need to be watching Tuesday's forecast evolution with growing attention starting this weekend. Now I need to talk about the thing that I have been building toward for several videos, the thing that makes inevitable the right word for the title of this video. The May 19th, 26 window is 10 days away, and the atmospheric setup for that window, based on everything I can see in the current modeling and pattern analysis, is not pointing toward a quiet week. The single most active week in U.S. tornado history is May 19th through 26, accounting for about 6% of all tornado reports ever recorded. 6% of all tornado reports ever recorded in a single week of the calendar year. Not a random week. A specific, documented, climatologically active week that has produced more tornadoes than any other 7-day period in the 76-year modern tornado record. And it arrives in 2026 in the middle of the same pattern that has been producing outbreak after outbreak since March. The 2026 season has been front-loaded, with most activity in March and early April. WeatherTrack US highlights a corridor from parts of the plains into the Mississippi Valley where overall spring activity could end up above average. Large-scale climate patterns like the AO and PNA can nudge a season toward more or fewer outbreaks, but even in a quiet pattern, one major outbreak can define the year for a community. Front-loaded does not mean finished. The seasonal forecasters predicted a front-loaded season, and the forecast has verified for the front portion. But front-loaded is a statement about relative distribution, not about May being quiet. And the May 19th to 26 window sits squarely in the period where the large-scale pattern, the mean upper troughing over Canada, the Gulf moisture return, the converging boundaries, is still active. Research on seasonal tornado prediction shows that large-scale climate patterns like the AO and PNA can nudge a season toward more or fewer outbreaks. Tornado outbreak activity still occurs in forecasts beyond day 11. The GEFS forecasts represent a realistic set of events sampled from May climatology, a peak month for tornado activity, the GEFS ensemble forecasts explicitly sample from May climatology as their baseline, because May, in any year with a reasonably active pattern, produces outbreak potential. And in 2026, the pattern is more than reasonably active. The same Canadian blocking low is still present, the same Gulf moisture is still accessible, the same converging boundary interactions that produced the March EF5, the April EF4, the Wednesday Mississippi tornado emergencies, they are still happening. The May 1926 window is not going to be quiet. I cannot tell you at this range exactly which day and which corridor will see the worst of it, but I can tell you, with the confidence that 10 weeks of verified forecasting gives me, that the atmosphere is not going to skip its most historically active week of the year in 2026. Let me put the full season in context, because I think it is the most compelling argument for why the word inevitable is justified. Since the first week of March 2026, there has been a major severe weather event, a tornado outbreak, a destructive squall line, a catastrophic flooding event, a wind damage event, every single week without exception. 13 consecutive weeks. Here's the ledger. Week 1 of March. First major outbreak, 32 tornadoes, 8 deaths including a mother and 13-year-old daughter. EF3 in Union City, Michigan, killing a 12-year-old boy. Week 2, second major outbreak, 106 tornadoes. EF5 in Wells County, Indiana, 200 mile-per-hour winds. Week 3, record March heat wave, Arizona 112 degrees, 17 states with hottest March temperature ever. Late March, early April, continued severe weather sequence building through April. April 17th to 18, 80 tornado single-day outbreak, EF3 through Kankakee, EF2 through Rochester, Minnesota. April 22 to 24, EF4 in Enid, Oklahoma, 175 miles, 40 homes destroyed, tornado emergency, 0 deaths. April 27th, Missouri moderate risk, PDS watch, Stone County PDS tornado warning, 11 p.m. April 28, Runaway Bay, Texas, EF2, 2 deaths. Salado Creek, San Antonio death. Mineral Wells, EF3, 145 departure. April 30th, May 6, Arc Latex threat, Bloomington, Indiana, EF2, Franklin County, Mississippi, tornado emergency, Brookhaven tornado emergency, simultaneous catastrophic warnings in Mississippi and Alabama. The 2026 tornado season is off to a fast, violent, and heartbreaking start. April was extremely active, featuring the massive April 17-18 outbreak with 80 confirmed tornadoes, and the April 22-24 outbreak, including the Enid EF4. 13 weeks. Not once has the pattern given a clean break. Not once has the Gulf moisture stayed south long enough to reset the atmospheric fuel supply. Not once has the Canadian trough fully retreated and allowed a stable ridge to dominate the central U.S. for more than a few days before the next shortwave energy ejection loaded the next setup. A progressive upper-level pattern is forecast during the day 4-8 period. An upper trough will move from the plains to the eastern U.S. through day 5 Monday. A cold front will sag southward across Texas and Gulf Coast states. By day 6, Tuesday, a deepening surface low is forecast across the Central Plains. The pattern does not break this weekend. The trough moves east, the cold front sags south. Then Tuesday's shortwave reloads the plains. And behind Tuesday, another week of moisture return. And behind that, the May 19th, 26 window. 14 consecutive weeks. 15. The machine keeps running. I said I was careful with the word inevitable, and I owe you the honest caveat that comes with it. Inevitable does not mean I know exactly when. It does not mean I know exactly where. Tuesday's setup could underperform if the moisture quality is marginal. The first days of the May 19th, 26 window could see a pattern disruption that pushes the peak toward May 26th or 27. The high risk that has not yet been issued in 2026 might arrive on a day I haven't specifically highlighted in this video. What inevitable means in the specific sense I am using it is this. Given a pattern that has produced a major severe weather event every week for 13 weeks, given a season that has not yet reached its historically most dangerous calendar window, given a large-scale atmospheric configuration that shows no signs of breaking down through the end of May, and given a Gulf of Mexico that is still warm and still willing to surge moisture northward into the plains, a massive tornado outbreak is going to happen before the end of this month. A single outbreak, or one tornado, striking a populated area can define a spring regardless of how the final count compares to average. One outbreak, one day, for one community. That is all it takes. And the atmospheric conditions that will produce that outbreak, in some configuration, in some specific corridor, on some specific afternoon, are assembling right now. Tuesday's deepening low is one candidate. The May 19th, 26 window is the highest probability window. But the pattern is loaded in a way that produces major, severe weather events, and it has been loaded this way since March. I'm not telling you to live in fear between now and the end of May. I'm telling you to be consistently, habitually prepared. not just on the days I tell you are dangerous, every day in this window, because the atmosphere does not give you advance notice of which specific day it chooses to deliver its most violent event. There's a specific tool that did not exist before March 2026, as the SPC's Conditional Intensity Group System, that I want to make sure every viewer understands before the May 19th, 26 window arrives, because it is going to be the most important single piece of forecast communication during whatever outbreak unfolds in that window. High-end severe weather like intense and violent tornadoes cause by far the greatest loss of life and property, and this improvement allows us to highlight days when these specific threats are more likely. The Conditional Intensity addition to SPC Convective Outlooks allows SPC forecasters to highlight areas at risk for more intense, violent storms. This level of detail in convective outlooks was first explored during the 2019 spring experiment. After over 4 years of internal experiment, SPC forecasters have demonstrated skill in the ability to discriminate between the conditional intensities of different severe weather hazards and are ready to share this information officially. CIG2 on a tornado indicator means the SPC is telling you not only is a tornado possible in this area, but if a tornado forms, it is likely to be EF2 or stronger, 111 in MLPH or faster, capable of removing roofs from well-constructed homes and throwing vehicles. When you see CIG2 on a tornado indicator for your area during the May 19th to 26 window, that is the most important piece of safety information you will receive that day. When you combine a CIG2 tornado indicator with an enhanced or moderate risk level, when the SPC is saying both we have high confidence significant tornadoes will occur, and the ones that form will likely be violent. That is the setup that historically produces the deadliest tornado outbreaks in American history. The SPC has never issued a high risk with CIG2 tornado indicators before. The CIG system is brand new in 2026. When, not if, when, the first high risk of 2026 is issued with CIG2 tornado indicators on the tornado probability map, it is going to be the most consequential day of the entire severe weather season. Watch for that combination, not just in the next 2 weeks, for the rest of May and into June. The 2026 severe weather season has produced a major outbreak event every single week for 13 consecutive weeks. It has produced an EF5, an EF4, multiple EF3s, 2 tornado emergencies in Mississippi in a single night, 12 confirmed American deaths, without issuing a single high-risk day. The most extreme warning level in American meteorology has not yet been deployed. A deepening surface low is forecast across the Central Plains on Tuesday, May 12th, as a shortwave impulse migrates through northwesterly flow aloft. Increasing southerly low-level flow will transport Gulf moisture northward across the central United States. Tuesday is the next named threat. The May 19th, 26 window, the single most historically active severe weather week in American records, is 10 days away. And the pattern that has driven 13 consecutive weeks of major severe weather shows no sign of breaking down. Tornado outbreak activity still occurs in forecasts beyond day 11. The GEFS forecasts represent a realistic set of events sampled from May climatology, a peak month for tornado activity. Peak month. We are in it right now, in the pattern that matches the NSO transition of 1974 and 2011, with the most historically dangerous week of the calendar year 10 days away, with 0 high-risk days issued in 2026 yet, with a Gulf that is warm and willing, with a Canadian blocking low that is still ejecting energy, with every atmospheric ingredient that has produced massive outbreaks since March still present and active. A massive tornado outbreak is coming before the end of this month. I believe that with more confidence than I have believed any forecast in this series. Even in a quiet pattern, one major outbreak can define the year for a community. This is not a quiet pattern. This is the most active spring pattern in recent memory. And the communities in traditional Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Nebraska, who have been watching the Midwest and Deep South absorb the season's worst while they waited for their own turn, that turn is approaching. Know your shelter. Keep your overnight alerts active every night from now through the end of May. Watch the SPC Outlook every morning. And when CIG2 tornado indicators appear on an enhanced or moderate risk map for your area, take it seriously in a way that matches what the SPC is telling you. The outbreak is inevitable. Be ready for it. I will be back with updates as Tuesday's setup sharpens and as the May 1926 window comes into forecast range. Stay safe. Watch this space.